questions. So first thing, so this week we talked about changing pace and perspective. And one of the things I'm always really interested in is, I think sometimes we assume we need to get slower, and we assume that we need to zoom out. But I think there are always times where we need to speed up, times we need to slow down, times we need to zoom out, times we need to zoom in. So I think all of those 4 skills, having the agility to move between those things, I think is really helpful. But let me know now, what's on your mind in terms of pace? Do you want to speed up, or do you need to slow down? Let's do pace first. I was going to draw a tortoise and a hare. So let's think tortoise and hare. Do you need to speed up, or do you need to slow down? Speed up, speed up. Yeah, you see, I think sometimes we assume it's always going to be slow down, but there are some people saying speed up. Great, we've got a mix. Slow down and not feel guilty. That's interesting. That's a really interesting extra build. Yeah, sometimes it can feel strange to not sort of be constantly on it or always on. Oh, that's really nice. I don't want to finish strong, I want to finish gentle. What a lovely way of describing it. Yeah, maybe for some of you, you're trying to do both. Maybe in some areas you need to slow down, maybe in some areas you do need to speed up. Ellen's saying, I just want to be steady, stay steady. Yeah, that's nice. Maybe the speed up, slow down, steady sometimes is okay. Need to feel comfortable with slowing down. Yeah, interesting, Helen. So my Helen, I do think of her, my Helen, to be honest. She definitely needs to feel comfortable with slowing down. She doesn't like it. Anything that slows her down, you can just sort of see the uncomfortableness on her face, as I'm very happy. Yeah, okay, other people saying, yeah, that feels a bit strange. So what about perspective? Do you feel like you need to zoom out, or do you feel like you need to zoom in a bit more? Zoom out or zoom in? Or are you sort of exactly at the right level? Zoom out, bit of both. Need more attention to detail, some of you, yeah. And again, I sometimes think about this as like, do you need to take the bird's eye view, or do you sort of need to go underground with the worms? Which may or may not sound very appealing, but sort of we'll dive into the soil, like what's happening and what's underneath that surface, and kind of really understand, or kind of diving below to kind of the bottom of the sea. Or are you that bird, are you that seagull, that blackbird, sort of approaching kind of the top and sort of trying to see the full picture, in and out at different times. We use the phrase zoom in, zoom out. Yeah, I hope it doesn't become, though, one of those things where you're like, sometimes can it become one of those annoying phrases where people are like, oh, we need to zoom out, and everyone starts to go, oh. Whereas I just think it's about perspective, like helping, sometimes it is really helpful to have perspective, like really kind of go up and see different perspective. Sometimes it's really helpful to make sure that we understand the details. Right, so let's talk about how we might do that. Yeah, Kat, give it time. Yeah, those things we like, they start off as useful and then we all begin to hate them. And I think that's okay too. I might go, well, we need to make sure we keep finding new ways of describing what it is that we're trying to do that's helpful. So what I thought we would have a go at this morning is a bit of something that's just sometimes described as mental time travel. So one of the things that can help us with perspective is asking ourselves questions that help our brains to spend times in different places. So your brain will naturally spend lots of time in present focus, because you'll need to do your job really well. So what do I need to do today? What do I need to do this week? And when we're in present focus, we actually tend to be more subjective. We feel everything because it's all happening sort of in the moment. It's all very fresh. When we ask ourselves some mental time travel questions, it slows us down. So this technique will both slow you down and give you perspective. So it does 2 things for you. So I'm going to ask you now 4 mental time travel questions that feel free to jot them down. A couple of them are in the pod note as well. We did talk about them in the podcast, but quite good to do them live just to see what springs to mind. I think they're quite hard to answer because we're forcing our brains to go into somewhere new. So don't worry if you can't answer them all at once. So in the first 5 years of your career, I'll ask you rather than in a I way. So in the first 5 years of your career, if you've got a pen and paper in front of you, just jot down, when do you think you were at your best? What was the job? What were you working on? Who were you working for? First 5 years of your career. Maybe you're still in the first 5 years of your career, but in your first 5 years of your career, when were you at your best? I'm just going to give you a moment to think about that. now I'd just like you to think about the first big obstacle that came your way in your career. The first big obstacle that came your way in your career. Maybe that was a difficult manager. Maybe that was a job you didn't enjoy. My first big obstacle in my career was doing a job that I thought was going to be brilliant, and it turned out to be the exact opposite. Actually, just because I was a real wrong fit for that role, but it really knocked my confidence. So what the question though is, what helped you overcome that obstacle? So thinking back to that first obstacle in your career, what helped you to kind of find your way through that moment? And on this one, if you wouldn't mind heading into chat, let's just share some of those things that helped us. It doesn't have, that second one, Kelly, good question, doesn't have to be in the first 5 years, just the first big obstacle that you can think of in your career. We usually have a moment where we go, oh, that was hard in that moment. It was the first time I'd experienced ... So what helped you though? What helped you figure out that difficult time? Oh, lovely, Ruth. Had some imposter syndrome and had that realization. Everybody has confidence gremlins. Everyone has beliefs that hold them back. You are not alone. So great that you got that's perspective. Great that you got that perspective that early on in your career. Remaining focused on what you can control. Brilliant one there from Nina. So sphere of control, sphere of concern. If you can stay in sphere of control, helps you to overcome obstacles, helps us to feel more in control. Control and choice are so big in terms of meaning and motivation. What else helped you? Networking, Kat. Yeah, one of the things I reflect on that didn't help me overcome the first big obstacle in my career is that I hadn't got a network. I was too young. I'd not done very many jobs. So I felt very lonely and very isolated. So that didn't help me. But a few of you are talking about people. Were people the thing that helped you? Like Tanya's talking about mentors, coaches, finding a friend at work to discuss the rubbish manager. I do remember that. I do remember the I'm just thinking, yeah, it's okay to say. We got a Starbucks at a place we used to work, which sounds ridiculous now, and everyone will probably be very sniffy about Starbucks, but I was very excited. This is outside of London. A Starbucks in your office outside of London was very exciting. And our one moment in a day would be we'd go to the Starbucks, treat ourselves to a latte, and go for a little walk around the grounds of this company. And you'd be like, that was the thing that I most look forward to, because we had got a horrendous manager. We've all been there. And that work best friend makes all the difference. And actually, we're still friends now. We still bond over lattes and cheese toasties, because I think we've got such vivid memories of eating a lot of cheese toasties and drinking a lot of lattes. Finding supportive people to talk to. Yeah, people playing a big role. Kat talking about values. Imposter syndrome coming up a lot, actually. Interesting. Being really honest, taking action. That point about control again. Understanding your strengths. Great. Working in a team that wasn't very supportive, focused on skills you were gaining. Before leaving, thank God. Yeah, I know we all feel like that with those big obstacles. But what's really interesting, I've definitely found that helpful. Obstacles, thinking, well, what am I still benefiting from? What's still going to help me here? Even though there's loads of stuff here that is hard, what is going to help me? There's usually something we can get from every experience. We might not be fun and we might not want to do it for too long, but there is usually something we can get from every experience. Some great insights here about what helped you. Brilliant. So we have zoomed kind of out, and we've done some mental time travel by going backwards. And we're now going to do some mental time travel going forwards. So we're going to think about in 3 years' time. So let's sort of think, we're together here. You've been coming to PodPlus for 3 years. It's November 2025. I think I've got that right. November 2025. What 3 words do you want to use to describe your career over the past 3 years? So let's imagine now we're kind of in that moment and you're looking back over the past 3 years. So from November 2022 to November 2025, what are the 3 words that sum up your career? And if anyone is happy to share in chat, I would love to see some of them. But, you know, these are personal to you, so don't feel like you have to. That word fulfilling coming up a lot. Interesting. Also interesting for us to think about how can we help people. Maybe have we done a podcast on fulfillment? That could be a good example, a good one, given how many of us are saying fulfilling. Inspiring, impactful, fun, Sarah, great words. Fulfilling coming up a lot. Flow, lovely word. Energizing, collaborative, balanced, really nice from Lucy in our team there. And I feel very responsible to help her make sure that those things are true. Tanya saying creative, fun, make good lifetime friends. That's really nice, Tanya. Do you know what? I would reflect on that and say the best times in my career I've made lifetime friends. So I wouldn't have gone there, but you've made me think actually that has been true when I think back to the past, when I thought about three really good years in my career. I've always made lifelong friends. Actually, that's a good way of thinking about it. Don't often go with friendship when we think about work as our first thoughts. Where do we want to? Can be fun, growth, exploratory, challenging, balanced, stuck, complacent. If you are thinking those words are not the words you want, use this as an opportunity to say, what are the words you want? So if you're thinking, well, this is more, maybe you've got sucked back into the present here with this exercise, and you're more sort of in though you don't want those words to be your words. This is your opportunity to do that reframing. That's what we're trying to help our brains to do. So ignore for now those words that might feel like your current reality, because we are intentionally sort of letting go of that constraint and thinking, no, this is what I want those words to be. This is what I want to be true in 3 years' time, even if it's not true today. Doesn't need to be true today. The most important thing is though you should look at those 3 words and feel really motivated by them. Claire, variety, growth, impactful. Nita, opening doors, inspiring, being a role model, lovely. Great. And then one more, a really big zoom out question for you. Let's imagine now we're all 90. So maybe we're still working, because who knows? Maybe we're choosing to still work at that age in 90. Maybe those things are changing. But we've got a bit of time off and we're sitting on a park bench and we're doing a bit of reflecting. What's one thing you want to feel really proud about in any part of your life? So this is not just about work, but you're sort of 90, sitting on a park bench. What's one thing you want to feel really proud of? And again, you can go absolutely anywhere with answering this question. Being kind, yeah, Claire. Interesting. I interviewed the Director General of BBC this week, and he talked a lot about kindness and being nice and how important he felt that was. And he's really ambitious, as you'd imagine. I gave lots of kind of interesting career advice for colleagues at the BBC, but he did say, I think people, we've all got to be kind and nice. There's almost too much noise going on outside our worlds that isn't kind and nice, that as a minimum, you've got to be kind and nice to each other, which I really rated. Lovely friends, generous and helping people be their best, living your values. Relationships, so interesting how relationships comes up. Let me see if I've got the book. I'm just going to do a quick slide on my so it's not out yet, but I think this is going to be really interesting. If you've not read the articles on this, so the book is going to be called The Good Life, but this is I don't know if you're familiar with, Harvard have been running a study on what makes a good life for, I think it's like 50 or 60 years. So they followed this same group of people. One of those sort of longitudinal studies where you start following people when they're maybe 20 or 21, and then you go back when they're 30, you go back when they're 40, you go back when they're 50. I think these guys now, I think some of them have died, but some of them are now like in their 80s and 90s. And so this is the first time that they've brought everything they found out together to kind of go, what does make a good life? What matters most? And most of you, I think, I know that one of kind of the points that I've read when I've read their work in progress is always about relationships and about helping others. So if you feel like you've got really strong relationships and you feel like you're helping others, I think the book's name's going to be, I've got an early copy, so they do sometimes change titles, but at the moment it's called The Good Life. I'm going to read it and see whether I think we should get them on the podcast, because they've said they might be interesting. So it might be one on Amazon pre-order. Brilliant, Claire. And they've done, maybe I did watch it, but I've not watched it recently. I think they've got a TED Talk. It's on the cover. It says top 10 TED Talks of all time. Oh, Joe. Thanks, Joe. I appreciate that diversion. So just connecting those dots now between thinking that mental time travel between moving from present to past and to future will always give you perspective. Have some of those go-to coach yourself questions ready to go. Almost like write them in a book somewhere. Keep coming back to them and use the ones that are useful for you. Like some of those ones there I found really helpful, but there might be some others. Any question that takes you into the past, quite a way back into the past, and quite a way into the future will be useful. So next question for you. I want you to imagine, and maybe I hope you don't have to imagine. I hope in the last couple of weeks this has happened. Imagine you've had a really good day. So things have gone well. Let me know in chat. So be thinking about that day. So I would be thinking about this week when I interviewed the Director General of the BBC. Obviously I was nervous. I prepared quite a lot for that. And it went really well. I'd just like you to now head into chat, describe a bit of that day that went really well for me. So if I was describing it, I would say, I felt like I asked really good questions. I came away feeling really energized. There were some brilliant points I wanted to share with other people. My message to Helen was, that was me at my best. You know, I do sometimes think there's a difference between being good and very good and being great. And I was like, I've just had a moment where I've been at my best. Like, I feel really proud of myself. So let me know, like, how would you describe a day that's gone really well? Imagine you were describing it to your partner, to your friend. So Jen saying, yeah, some great conversations, felt like you made a difference. No conflict. That's interesting, Victoria. Energized, engaged. That's interesting, Tanya. Yeah. You were talking about asking quality questions. A day with no red lights. Such a good description, literally and figuratively. Good collaboration. Pushed myself out. I couldn't say I loved it. Okay, great. Mix of activity. Interesting. And we're doing it in chat, so this kind of works to a point. But what's interesting is if you ask people to describe their day, and you can start to see it even in the way people are approaching that question in chat, people tend to go one or two ways. Some people are a bit more like me, and you go for sweeping statements. So it's more about like how that day made you feel. So my thing to Helen was, I've been at my best. Didn't really give any specifics, quite sweeping statements about how are you feeling, like, or not necessarily what you learned, just like this kind of almost like the emotions of that has just been brilliant. I was at my best. It was great. I'm really proud of myself. Okay, great. If Helen has that same experience, and actually even her response to me about that day going really well, she gets very specific very quickly. So she dives into the detail much more quickly than I do. So she was saying, her first questions to me were things like, what was it that you did well? How could you do more of that? How could we do more of that amazing if, given that you're kind of really good at that thing? She dives more forensically into the detail. And again, if I talk to Helen about a day that went well, she's not saying to me, oh, I was at my best and, you know, more general statements. She would say to me, I know that she did a session this week that went well on presence and influence and gravitas. And she said, this exercise was really good. We should think about how we could use that elsewhere. We should think about how we can make this helpful. So she zooms in as I zoom out in response to my day. She gets more detailed, I get more general. So it's worth doing this exercise. Pick a day next week, and at the end of the day, and it's often more helpful to do a day that's gone really well or a day that's gone really badly. On the podcast, if you have listened to it this week, you will hear I did it after a day that had gone really badly. And it's so funny that actually it caused a bit of conflict between Helen and I. I was describing a day that had gone really badly. And then Helen's approach to sort of supporting me with that day was so different in terms of diving into the detail. I felt like she was criticizing me. I felt like she was in my diary going, it's so interesting because, and I was like, are you joking me? I'm literally just telling you I'm like barely surviving. But yeah, we can laugh about it. So maybe have a go at doing it for yourself. Pick a great day, pick a bad day. Don't pick the in-between ones. It's not as interesting. And just notice at the end of that day, how would you describe that day? Do you do me? Do you go general, sweeping? It's about feelings. You're much more zoomed out. Or do you dive into the detail? So notice where you naturally gravitate towards, and then have a go at the opposite. Have a go at the opposite. Almost very consciously sort of put the opposite hat on and think, okay, if I was going to dive into my detail, what does that sound like? Or if I was just going to zoom out and think about, well, how am I feeling? And how would I describe this day in a sentence? Force yourself, kind of create a bit of a forcing function to do what doesn't come naturally to you. It's a really helpful way of seeing your situation in a new way, in a different way. I will sometimes think, I'm going to put my Helen hat on. And I know that Helen sometimes goes, I'm going to put my Sarah hat on. It's a really helpful way of a bit of reframing, but also just seeing your situation in a new way. Great. So have a go at both of those and see if you kind of find that helpful. Yeah, and you could do that if you like journaling. It's a good way of journaling. It's a different way of journaling. Like, how do you describe your day? Maybe one day describe your day in a very zoomed out way. Do it in one sentence, one feeling. How would you describe your day in one sentence and one feeling? Maybe the next day, how would you describe the first hour of your day in 5 bullet points? They are very, very different ways of thinking about your day. Really good for your brain. Yeah, try it both ways. Last thing I wanted to talk about, let me know now in chat, or just a quick reminder to go on mute if you're not already. One thing you want to achieve before Christmas. What's one thing you want to achieve before Christmas? Which is like scarily, I don't know, 6 weeks away, 7 weeks away. No one wants to be the person saying that. Karen wants to do a Christmas shopping, fair enough. Very specific. What else do you want to do? What do you want to achieve? A new job, brilliant. Get rid of all your tabs, love that, Vivi. It doesn't have to be career related. Get a new job, balance work life, onboarding a new team member, starting a new workshop, being organized. Great. When you are thinking about that one thing you want to do between now and Christmas, think about what will help you speed up, what will help you slow down. Use that objective, use that goal as a way to practice different pace. So, for example, if you need to speed yourself up, what are all the deadlines between now and Christmas? What are all the kind of mini goals that are going to make that happen? Even if it's Christmas shopping, I've got to work out who I need to buy for. I've got to make the list. I've got to figure out when am I going to do it. I've got to actually do it. I've got to wrap those presents up. So do the breaking down. We sometimes call it a deadline dashboard. So do your deadline dashboard. That will speed you up. That will create a mini sprint. Mini sprints are really helpful when you've got a goal in mind. And at the same time, think about what might slow you down in a useful way in relation to that goal. So maybe it is 15 minutes at the start of your day where you do something intentionally slows your pace down. How and where will slowing yourself down be useful? For example, today I need to write a HBR article, and that won't go out now for at least another month because there's probably got a month process. So slowing myself down would look like, after this, rather than getting straight into writing, maybe I watch one TED talk for a bit of inspiration. So I slow myself down because I then think, well, that is actually going to help me. That's going to help me with the quality of that article that I need to write. So take a goal, because it's much easier to do if you've got a goal, and then figure out what does a mini sprint look like, but also what does slowing yourself down in a way that actually kind of finding some slow flow in relation to something that matters to you can be really helpful. Maybe if it's Christmas shopping, it's meditating. I don't know. The idea of that kind of, or maybe you decide to do it all online and you're going to meditate for 5 minutes before you do it, before you have to spend all that money. I hope that's been helpful. I appreciate we've not had any diagrams today. I sort of went, do you know what, let's give up on the tech. I'd much rather share the content. I hope that has been useful. We will make sure that we do a podcast episode on portfolio careers. Enough people seem to say that they would find that useful. Keep any of those suggestions coming. I will share this, save this chat from today. So it's given me lots of different ideas. And look forward to seeing you all again soon. Great to be back. Great to be back, Natalia. Lovely to see you all. Thank you for having a great start to the day with me. Always really enjoy PodPlus. Yeah, we will come back to parenting. We get asked about that one a lot. Christine Armstrong's episode, though, is very good on parenting. That's our best, closest one at the moment. Listen to Christine Armstrong. Read her book, Mother of All Jobs, whether you're male or female. It's a brilliant book and it's funny. She never fails to make me laugh. Follow her on LinkedIn. Her weekly vlogs, brilliant. It's the best thing you can do on a Friday on LinkedIn. Probably the best thing you could do at the start of a Friday, to be honest. Thank you all, everyone. See you all soon.